A sobering loss to Nigeria. That's how the President, Bola Tinubu, described the passing of Pa Edwin Clark, whose death was announced yesterday by members of his family. Nigeria is still, coming to terms with the loss of two titans who passed within days of each other. Pa Ayo Adebanjo, who passed on Friday, the 14th of February, and also Pa Edwin Clark, whose death was announced just yesterday. Well, joining us to take further look at the conversations and the lessons around their lives, we have with us this morning Mr. Laolu Akande, who is a former presidential aide. Mr. Akande, good to see you again, as always.
Good to see you.
Well, look at just what it is that we have to deal with this morning, the passing of these two gentlemen. I mean, 96, 97, I think for a number of people, they have been thinking, these men are old, but their voices remained ever so strong, ever so consistent with matters that had to do with restructuring and true federalism. Why has it been so difficult for us to listen to them?
Well, I mean, that's a very fundamental question that you just asked, Mark, because especially at a time when we have in the federal government people that we will call the ally, of both of them, especially Chief Ayo Adebanjo. We know exactly the roles that people like Chief Ayo Adebanjo played in the rise of the president, all the way from Lagos in 1998, 1999, that he emerged as a governor. So you will hope that particularly Chief Ayo Adebanjo will feel a sense of fulfillment that now, in my lifetime, somebody that was in my corner, has made it to the presidency.
But that wasn't the situation, because interestingly, if there was anything that, stood Pa Ayo Adebanjo out, I mean, his leadership of Afenifere, a social political group, did not think it was a turn of the Southwest to produce a president, even though he is from the Southwest.
Yeah.
He spoke up very clearly in favor of the Southeast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are different dimensions to it.
Yeah.
And that's a dimension that you've introduced. The first dimension that I was laying the ground for is to say that, look, Pa Ayo Adebanjo and people like Pa Edwin Clark, were the ones in the vanguard of restructuring in this country. Guess what? Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was a major facilitator of that vanguard. So you would have expected that, they would then be feeling fulfilled. Now, but the other point you raise is also very germane, because Pa Adebanjo in particular took a decision, especially in 2023, to say that, look, if we are going to, if we are advancing or advocating for restructuring on the basis of equity, that the argument to have somebody from the Southeast go for the presidency is a right one. And the truth of the matter, I'll tell you, my friend, is that not many people can fault that logic. You can't fault that logic. But then the stuff is reduced to interest. That, look, well, we seem to have the upper hand if you look at the political equation at that time. And it's difficult to give up, that kind of advantage that didn't come easy, by the way. It didn't come easy. The people that formed APC were in the opposition since 1999. So it got to 2015, we were able to defeat the incumbent party. Two people who made that happen had set up themselves that you go and I come. So yeah, so you can understand why it was not going to happen. But to the credit of Chief Ayo Adebanjo, he raised the voice and said, look, if we want a united Nigeria, if we want a buoyant country where our diversity becomes our strength, where everyone gets a sense of belonging, then the right thing to do is to let this thing go to the Southeast. A principled position, but it wasn't. It didn't align with the expediency of the time.
Well, that's for Pa Adebanjo. Pa Edwin Clark passed yesterday. It's very interesting that these two gentlemen, for all of their, belief in Nigeria, they both headed two very vibrant socio-political groups.
Yes.
Pa Adebanjo, was the head of Afenifere, and Pa Edwin Clark was the head of PANDEF, the Pan Niger Delta Forum. And for many years, they kept their voices in the vanguard. So sometimes I find it a bit difficult to reconcile that we seek an advantage for our region. At the same time, we speak for a united Nigeria.
Yeah.
How do you think they were able to straddle this two in such a way that we still saw them as elder statesmen?
Well, so just like we said about Chief Adebanjo, he even got the opportunity in his lifetime before he passed on to say that, look, I am willing to put down my ethnic interest and say that, look, let this thing go elsewhere. We have to give him that credit. Now, for Chief Edwin Clark, he is a fighter, and you have to understand that he came from a minority group. Chief Adebanjo came from a majority group. And whichever way you dice it, the calculus, the Nigerian political calculus, is still more favorable to the majority groups than it is the minority. So Edwin Clark is coming from the minority, and the minority that happens to be the one that actually, they sustain this country, the resources that we have used, to attempt to transform this country, that gave us a lot of money, came from that minority group that was for a long time, and we all know this, was for a long time subjugated. So it will be much more difficult, to expect Edwin Clark not to align with that, because he was coming from a place of real struggle, a place of subjugation, to become a strident voice, and who became a very tireless fighter, But I think fortune also, smiled on him when Dr. Goodluck Jonathan in 2010 became the president of the country. So he also has some kind of fulfillment. So to your point, yes, we have all these people pushing the interests of their ethnicity, but are also trying to find a balance. And it goes back to the conversation that was between Awolowo, Sardauna, and Azikwe at some point about the differences. And, I think it was Sardauna that said that, look, it's important for us to understand our differences. Don't let's just show it aside as if it doesn't matter. The point is that, look, we must protect our interests. Like I will say, he's first a Yoruba man before he's a Nigerian. The problem that we have had in our country is that we have not been able to create on a critical level, at the mass level, that Nigerian. It hasn't really happened. It is still much a talk of aspiration. But hey, yes, so I'm a Yoruba man. People identify themselves first and foremost by their ethnicity, which is natural. But the task that we have, and which these two gentlemen, these two hold iconic elder statesmen, try to show is that, look, we can have that Nigerian, we can have that status and that identity as a Nigerian, but the path to that status is the path that we have not taken. And for their life, they showed us that this is how to do it, this is how to do it. It comes back to what you said, we have not been able to get it done. I'm
looking at, first and foremost, there's a few things you've said now that, some people will say we need to challenge that. Give you an instance, yes. The fact that, yes, you could argue that in the time of our fathers, yes, in the time of our grandfathers, I know you're significantly older than me, so maybe your time...
Don't put it out there.
Maybe your time, you can also say, I am this first before I am a Nigerian. Especially when you take a look at how people grew up, where they grew up. the culture within which they grew up. But with the evolution of more cosmopolitan cities, and people growing up in cities, having very little links to their rural origins, you know, do we see a shift in that regard? Will we still see a situation where people identify first as people from their regions before, you know, they identify as Nigerians? Or do you think that as a result of this, you know, evolution we're having somewhat, people growing up in melting pots, that, you know, the view will begin to change?
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, if you look at the relationship of the ordinary Nigeria, the mass of our people, they are not concerned, they are not so worried and bothered about our differences. Because like you said, in a place like Lagos, majority of the folks that are there, you know, they are there for an economic reason. They are trying to seek some, you know, it's the pursuit of happiness, trying to actualize themselves, find a way to go forward. The problem happens a lot of the time, Mark, when the elites are contesting for scarce political advantage or resources. They are the ones that rake up the sentiments, the ethnic sentiments, to say that, oh, look, you have denied us. This is our turn. You know, the ordinary people don't care. We all went to school. You know, we made friends. We played on the streets. It didn't matter. But our political socialization, that is the handiwork of our political elite, is what reminds us and tells us that, A, we are different. Why? Because look at what is happening. They are doing this, that against us. They are doing that, you know, against them. I mean, we are supposed to get this, and they are getting, you know. So that's how we get socialized.
Would you say we're being naive? Because the fact that these elderly people have kept their voices strong in the area of restructuring. I mean, today we still have with us Chief Emeka Anyaoku,
yes,
who, you know, is a big voice with the Patriots. They have also been clamoring for restructuring. In fact, Chief Emeka Anyaoku has been speaking very strongly that even if you were to bring angels from heaven to govern, they will still have challenges unless we restructure. So are we being naive, you know, looking at how, you know, we're growing up in this, as I did say, melting pots, and we think, oh, it's a problem of the political elite? Or are our elders really saying something that we are glossing over?
Well, you know, so the elders are right. You know, Pa Edwin Clark is right, Pa Adebanjo is right, you know, and both of them have passed to the great beyond. Condolences. Chief Emeka Anyaoku is still on the ground and is right. What they are all saying, and many of us still hope that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu can get these things going, is that, look, yes, this idea of one big, great Nigeria is attractive, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. But we must come to a situation where we can build some kind of understanding, consensus as to how to do it. We cannot do it, and I also agree with them, we cannot do it based on a constitution that was written by soldiers. A constitution that even on May 29, 1999 wasn't available. Nobody had a copy of it. It was all done shoddily. Yes, it's people that will implement it, but we need a process, or a constitutional making process that binds us together. The development that we are supposed to have, the kind of interaction, the bonding of that negotiation, of a forum where we all come together, is very critical. Those were the things that happened before independence in the time of Awolowo, Sardana, you know, and Azikiwe and the rest of them. They were going to these conferences. They were representing their people. We need that sense to begin to have the foundation of that true Nigeria that we need. And the point, you know, last point, Marco, is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must see his position as the one that ought to make this thing happen, based on his own pedigree. All of these folks, you know, the two gentlemen, wonderful, great people that have passed on, they are his allies. Chief Kanyaku has met him as early as a few months last year. And he gave his word that the thing was going to get started even before the end of last year. He still has the opportunity to make it happen.
Well, I understand Ayo has a burning question for you. Ayo.
Mr. Akande, just one of the few questions that I asked Chief Opaduku the other time. The generations are different, but they were young when they started. Now, it would seem like most of the young people today didn't have as strong a voice as they had when they were growing up. Did we miss something? He attributes it to the fact that the military has done us we've been hard done by the military. Do you agree with that? I mean, there are those who say after 20-something years, we ought to have grown up.
I mean, so what you will find, Hayo, in Chief Hayo Opaduku's narrative, which is very strong and compelling, is an insider's perspective of how it is that Nigeria was transformed, not really positively by the military. And that's the truth. The military changed the face of this country. The military distorted the trajectory of Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. And that's the point that people like Ayo Opaduku we make very, very, very strongly. And we cannot disagree. But since 1999, like you did ask him, we had the opportunity, you know, to straighten things out. And then people will say, okay, yes, you know, Obasanjo was a military man, and a lot of people in the society, you know, that have become, they have a voice in society now, they are lackeys of soldiers. But that's why we are saying that the time has come for us. We have reached the turning point. We need to take the bulls by the horns and make this thing happen. We still have the opportunity. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came out of that movement that said that no, we must have democracy. We are hoping and believing and trusting and praying that he wouldn't leave that place without changing the trajectory of this country in the right direction.
And I think that it's a fine place to leave it. We will continue to see just how Nigeria honors the memories of these two men and the legacies that they stand for. But we have to thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Mr. Laolu Akande, former presidential aide.